Remember that debate during the pandemic? On the left, they were saying, Trump and Joe Rogan took it. It must be for animals. Okay, it won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for what it did for humans. But whatever, the point is, it's a drug. It's not a politician. Drugs don't have political parties. Although I do suspect Xanax is a Democrat. What good is liberalism if you don't win elections? Last week, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton said, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. Yes, there's the problem in a nutshell. Because Congressman Moulton sounds reasonable to me, but his campaign manager immediately resigned in protest. Let me make this as plain as I can to the smart people. The campaign manager who resigned, yeah, let that person go.
Oh, it's getting nuclear out here. Bill Mahr just took a flamethrower to the Democratic Party. And let's just say, the smell of roasted liberal feathers is still in the air. On the latest scorcher of Real Time with Bill Mahr, the brutally unfiltered host didn't hold back. He obliterated the Dems, mocking them as a pathetic parade of gutless wonders, too scared to stand for anything beyond their next safe soundbite. Mahr's takedown was so ruthless, you could almost hear the DNC reaching for the blacklist. From calling them morally hollow to painting them as cowardly chickens flapping around in a panic coop, this wasn't a critique, it was a televised execution. And guess what? We've got the whole brutal segment broken down for you, piece by fiery piece. Stay locked in, because this political drag session is one for the history books. Let's get into the carnage.
Americans must get over the fantasy they have that they are a people of core convictions and deeply held beliefs. They're not. They only care which side is saying something. Let me give you 10 million examples. This car used to be fire. Now it's on fire. Back when Elon Musk was presumed liberal, liberals loved electric cars and conservatives hated them. Then Elon went MAGA, and while the car market grew by 10% last month, sales of electric vehicles were down 5%, and not just Teslas, all EVs.
Bill Mahr didn't waste a single second. He opened the show with a haymaker aimed straight at the heart of liberal hypocrisy. And man, did it sting. I couldn't help but think of my old neighbor. The guy practically had a shrine to Elon Musk in his garage. The way he used to talk, you'd think Musk walked on water. He's a genius, he'd preach. Tesla is the future. He's saving the world one electric car at a time. But the minute Musk stopped parroting the approved Democratic talking points, boom. That love turned to loathing faster than you could say Twitter rebrand. Suddenly, Musk wasn't a hero. He was a villain, a sellout, a Silicon Valley Judas. Mahr didn't just call it out. He ripped the mask off. The message was brutal and clear. For some of these so-called progressives, it's never been about ideals or truth. It's about blind allegiance. Cross the party line and you're dead to them. No nuance, no mercy, just cancel culture with a smug smile.
This is a crazy, shallow way to make decisions that we all do too much. A new book by David Zweig called An Abundance of Caution about the repercussions from keeping the schools closed so long during the pandemic has garnered a lot of attention. And here's the author's takeaway line. The American Academy of Pediatrics were very strongly in favor of getting kids into schools, but as soon as Trump came out in favor of reopening, they completely reversed their position. Hey, if you find yourself suddenly hating something you loved 5 minutes ago, or vice versa, ask your doctor if ivermectin is right for you.
Trump derangement syndrome? Oh, it's not just real. It's practically a government-funded circus at this point. We're talking about full-blown institutional whiplash, with entire federal agencies doing policy backflips just because his name is in the mix. This isn't opposition rooted in logic. It's vindictive hysteria masquerading as governance. And the most twisted part? The fury isn't really aimed at Trump. He's just the lightning rod. The collateral damage? That's America. Ask yourself, who pays the price when schools open or shut based on who's sitting in the Oval Office, instead of what's best for kids? Who suffers when public health is weaponized as a political tool? Not Trump. He's just the excuse. The real victims are the students left behind, the families stuck in chaos, the teachers forced to navigate nonsense. These people aren't fighting Trump. They're burning the house down to spite the former tenant, and it's the country that's left choking on the smoke.
Remember that debate during the pandemic? On the left, they were saying, Trump and Joe Rogan took it. It must be for animals. Okay, it won the Nobel Prize in 2015 for what it did for humans. But whatever, the point is, it's a drug. It's not a politician. Drugs don't have political parties. Although I do suspect Xanax is a Democrat.
Oh, I remember it like yesterday. Rachel Maddow practically lost her mind on MSNBC, accusing Joe Rogan of taking horse meds. Not because he actually did, but because she thought he leaned Republican. That's all it takes now. Wrong vibe, wrong tribe. These days, facts don't matter. Loyalty does. Step out of line even slightly, and they'll brand you a traitor faster than you can say free thought. Maher nailed it. Democrats aren't solving anything, they're just sedating the public with dull, empty messaging. Like Xanax, they don't cure the problem. They just numb the symptoms and hope no one notices.
Don't be a hypocrite. And that's the challenge, to not automatically rush to the opposite viewpoint based solely on who said it. But until we get to where we can do that, I just hope the Democrats come out strongly next week for dictatorship, coal mining, and making pot illegal.
Look, no one's saying you need to switch sides just because someone suggests it. But when the noise from your own party turns into a nonstop barrage of guilt-tripping, virtue flexing, and ideological purity tests, you've got to ask yourself, is this really my tribe anymore? That's exactly what's been happening. A quiet exodus. Lifelong Democrats hearing the endless woke sermon and thinking, nope, I'm out. Some drifted to the center, others took the leap and landed on the right. Not because they suddenly loved red hats, but because they couldn't stomach the delusion any longer. The left got so self-righteous, so disconnected from everyday reality, they practically shoved people into Trump's camp. Not because he was perfect, but because he spoke in plain terms, without the layers of elite condescension. It wasn't a political conversion, it was a jailbreak from the insanity.
What good is liberalism if you don't win elections? Last week, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton said, I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that. Yes, there's the problem in a nutshell. Because Congressman Moulton sounds reasonable to me, but his campaign manager immediately resigned in protest. Let me make this as plain as I can to the smart people. The campaign manager who resigned, yeah, let that person go.
And that, right there, is how the Democrats handed the elections away on a silver platter. They ditched real issues, like rising prices, crime in the streets, failing schools, and a border in chaos, in favor of obsessing over pet causes that barely register with the average American. It wasn't just tone deaf, it was electoral self-destruction. Voters saw the bait and switch and said, no thanks. They didn't sign up for ideological purity tests and lectures. They wanted solutions. But the party was too busy preaching from its progressive pulpit to listen. Even voices of reason like Representative Seth Moulton couldn't break through. The second he or anyone else suggested a moderate course correction, the backlash was swift and brutal. Not from Republicans, but from their own ranks. Canceled, shut down, humiliated for daring to think independently. The Democratic Party didn't just lose touch, they turned on themselves. And when you create a movement that punishes free thought, you don't just lose voters, you lose your soul. And eventually, you lose the nation.
By making too woke be a cancelable offense. It's important for America to have a center-left party, and for that party to be competitive. And a good first step toward that goal would be to make the voters not want to punch you in the face.
Sure, the left needs a reality check, but the center-left isn't some magic fix. Rebranding progressive ideology with a moderate tone doesn't erase the roots of the problem. Wokeness didn't come from nowhere. It grew out of progressivism. So, if the core beliefs stay the same, just quieter, what's really different? Still, if a centrist shift can flush out the worst extremes, cancel culture, identity obsession, moral policing, it's a start. At least then, we might get back to real debate instead of living under a constant culture war fog.
I will conclude by saying the reason I'm so mad at the Democrats is because as a voter, the issues that were important to me were democracy and the environment. And now, There's no one to champion or defend either of them because you, with your aggressively anti-common sense agenda and shitty exclusionary attitude, blew it. You lost everything. House, Senate, White House, Supreme Court, and left us completely unprotected and ready to be violated.
Bill Mahr has finally peeled back the curtain, and what he's revealing is brutal. His patience with the Democratic Party, a party he's championed with both his voice and his wallet, is wearing dangerously thin. For years, he believed he was supporting a movement that stood for free speech, reason, and real progress. But somewhere along the way, the mission morphed. What once felt like a cause became a circus, where ideology trumps logic and social media clout matters more than meaningful policy. And he's not the only one waking up. Lifelong Democrats are quietly pulling back, not because they've abandoned liberal values, but because their party did. They didn't sign up to bicker over language or chase Twitter applause. They wanted change, not theatrics. Now there's a quiet rebellion brewing. Not loud, not angry, just principled voters slipping out the side door, tired of being gaslit by a party that's lost its way.
You can get creative with a novel, a TV show, or a movie, but history books? That's not supposed to be fan fiction. How we teach our kids history has become a big controversy these days, with liberals accusing conservatives of wanting to whitewash the past, and sometimes that's true. Sometimes they do. But plenty of liberals also want to abuse history to control the present. And last month, a scholar named James Sweet caught hell for calling them out for doing just that. He criticized the phenomenon known as presentism, which means judging everyone in the past by the standards of the present. It's the belief that people who lived 100 or 500 or 1,000 years ago really should have known better.
Beyond ditching democracy's core values and diving headfirst into radical woke mania, the Democrats have launched an all-out assault on history itself. Instead of learning from the past, they're busy rewriting it, dragging down historical figures and events, judging them by today's ultra-sensitive, ultra-political lens. Even Abraham Lincoln, the man who freed the slaves, is under fire, slammed for choices made in a totally different century. This isn't progress. It's historical revisionism dressed up as virtue. Demanding flawless morality by today's standards ignores context and complexity. Erasing or demonizing our history doesn't make us smarter. It blinds us, cutting off the lessons we desperately need to avoid repeating mistakes.
Which is so stupid. It's like getting mad at yourself for not knowing what you know now when you were 10. Stupid me, spending all that time raising sea monkeys and playing with slot cards and jerking off to a Playboy in the barn. Who doesn't have moments from your past that make you cringe? Who hasn't said, I can't believe I said that? I can't believe I wore that. I can't believe I thought that. I can't believe I did that. You ate dirt. You wanted to be a Ghostbuster. You shoplifted gum. You tried to be a white breakdancer.
Nobody's flawless, not even the giants of history. Take Thomas Jefferson. He wrote the Declaration of Independence and championed liberty. Yet he owned slaves and ignored that glaring contradiction. Gandhi led India's non-violent revolution, but held troubling views on race and gender. Churchill helped defeat fascism, but backed colonial policies and made deeply problematic remarks about non-European peoples. Sure, some of their faults come from the limits of their time or ignorance, but when we judge their legacies, we look at the bigger picture, the freedoms they fought for, the movements they sparked, the courage they showed. We judge the whole truth, not just the flaws, because everyone has them. At the end of the day, this isn't about choosing sides. It's about choosing reality. Bill Mahr, once a liberal standard-bearer, is now calling out the hypocrisy, because someone has to. When principles get tossed aside for politics and facts are buried beneath feelings, people start waking up. The Democrats didn't lose because of Trump. They lost because they lost the story. And America? It's done with the act. It wants the truth. That's where we'll end today's episode. If you liked this breakdown, hit the like button and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching. See you next time.